When an intelligent person goes silent, most people misunderstand what is really happening. They assume silence means weakness, emotional shutdown, or a lack of care. But Carl Jung believed the opposite. He saw silence as a sign of deep psychological awareness, a moment when the mind has processed more than words can express. This silence does not appear suddenly. It is the final stage of a long internal journey, one that begins with patience, understanding, and emotional effort. Highly intelligent people experience emotions differently. They do not react immediately. They observe, reflect, and analyze before expressing how they feel. Where others release emotions outwardly through anger or confrontation, intelligent minds turn inward. They replay conversations, examine intentions, and question their own role in every situation. They ask themselves whether they are being fair, whether they are misunderstanding something, and whether the situation can still be repaired. This internal processing often makes them appear calm, but calmness does not mean indifference. Beneath the surface, their mind is constantly working. Because they understand complexity, intelligent people rarely give up quickly. They believe problems can be solved through communication and awareness. They explain their feelings carefully, choosing clarity over accusation. They compromise more than they should and tolerate behavior that quietly drains them emotionally. Carl Jung described this as the burden of consciousness. The more aware a person is, the more responsibility they feel to maintain harmony, even at their own expense. They see potential where others see problems, and because of that, they stay longer than most people would. Over time, however, something begins to change. They notice that their words are losing their power. The same issues keep returning. Apologies are repeated, but behavior stays the same. Promises are made, but no real change follows. Slowly, they realize that understanding is one-sided. They are explaining, but not being heard. At this point, arguing feels pointless, not because they have nothing to say, but because saying it again feels like emotional labor without meaning. Carl Jung believed that when the conscious mind becomes exhausted, the unconscious takes control. This is where silence begins. It is not a punishment, and it is not manipulation. It is self-preservation. The mind quietly decides that continued engagement will only cause further harm. Instead of reacting emotionally, it withdraws inward. This withdrawal is not dramatic. There are no final speeches or emotional scenes. There is simply less effort, less explanation, and eventually, no response at all. People often misinterpret this silence. They say the person has changed or become cold. They assume the lack of reaction means the absence of feeling. In reality, the opposite is true. Silence is the result of feeling too much for too long. Intelligent people stop reacting when they realize that reaction keeps them emotionally trapped. Arguments maintain connection, even if that connection is painful. Silence breaks that cycle. It removes emotional access and ends the constant exchange of energy. This is why silence feels so uncomfortable to others. Anger can be argued with. Sadness can be negotiated with. Even disappointment leaves space for conversation. Silence offers nothing to hold on to. It removes control and eliminates reassurance. Carl Jung understood that silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the moment when a person no longer seeks validation or understanding from a situation that has already shown its limits. Before an intelligent person leaves physically, they leave psychologically. Detachment begins internally. They grieve privately and accept the reality of the situation in silence. By the time silence becomes visible, the emotional decision has already been made. This is why they do not seek closure or explanations. They are no longer trying to be understood because they already understand. The attachment has dissolved, quietly, without conflict. Carl Jung described this process as individuation, the moment when the self chooses integrity over attachment. At this stage, apologies feel repetitive and promises feel predictable. Emotional appeals arrive too late because the mind has already reorganized itself around a new truth. The silence becomes final not because of anger, but because of acceptance. It is no longer emotional, it is rational. This kind of silence teaches an important lesson. Not everyone leaves loudly. Not every ending comes with confrontation. Sometimes people leave quietly after realizing they have been unheard for too long. Intelligent people do not escape pain, they process it. They allow themselves to feel it fully and then move forward without resentment. Silence, in this sense, is not cruelty, it is clarity. If you are the one who has gone silent, understand that this does not make you cold or heartless. It means you have reached a level of awareness where protecting your inner world matters more than proving a point. And if someone has gone silent on you, ask yourself honestly whether they stopped caring or whether they simply stopped being heard. Because when an intelligent person chooses silence, they are not trying to be understood anymore. They already understand. And that understanding changes